and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scamming, jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis XIII, Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head, my Rothschild niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day peppering America overseas, pension for the workers, nigga please, embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement, I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut, foreclose of it, close out the tenement, I twist words like a speech impediment, I hope you got good credit bitch, if not better get a new job with benefits, while I play golf with niggas to get cheddar with, new money buys brand new carrots, my old money bunch of great grandparents, you got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at ya, I own every gold mine in South Africa. Thanks, baby, you made me $1 billion. Plus, I own a building for each one of my children's children.
Thank you for tuning in to Voice Rebellion Radio. This is your host, Chris J. tonight on UCY.TV. We are talking about multiple topics tonight. Really, I just feel like capping off a little bit on South American politics. A little bit also, probably go into sports a little bit, as I have tended to have done on especially weekends where I've watched a decent amount of football, which I mean, that's what this weekend was a good amount. After a pretty boring week at work, yeah, I guess I'm falling right into the trap that most Americans at least I'm keeping up on my politics and staying awake on what's really going on in the world while still enjoying a little bit of distraction that football is. Well, we try to get through, I don't know, January. It's the shittiest month of the year. Am I right? I mean, even if you live in Florida like I do, it still sucks because everybody, I mean, for the most part, everybody, the energy's all off because they just had the exhausting holidays and spent a shit ton of money. And then they're thinking, oh, fuck, now after, all those, days off in the holidays, you don't get any more days off for a good while now. I mean, some people, they'll get tomorrow off, MLK Day. I don't, but it's lucky those people to get those days off. But just like January, it's the shittiest month, but hopefully this radio show will make it a little less shitty, especially if you live up north. And, I'm sorry, you guys live up in Ohio and, especially the Northeast. Guys, it's about 2 degrees up there. And at the same time, I see these, watching that Philadelphia game and these people, I don't know how these people do it, to go to these sporting games of any kind, whether it's, basketball, well, really the only ones outside football, but even if you have to go to outside, just going outside when it's that cold, fuck that. I guess I'm a true Floridian in that regard, that I don't really, I can handle the cold, but I don't really like it that much. Anyways, getting back on topic is that, so the one that, I can't believe what the mainstream media's, big scandal that they are right now pushing is the Trump's remarks apparently at a, bipartisan gathering saying that, Haiti and some African countries were shitholes, which, here's what I was thinking is that, this is just great to see that the media actually saying shithole 100 times in a day. I mean, just watching them crumble to the joke that they are, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and the people that this is the first time they've ever tuned into the show. I'm not by any means a Trump apologist or a Trump supporter, even though that's, it's really weird how people, when you attack one side, they automatically think you're the other side. You attack Trump, they automatically think that you're part of Antifa. You attack Antifa, they automatically think that you're a white nationalist or something like that. Which, there's been people will accuse me of whatever. People are going to say that, that I'm just, one of Trump's deplorables in quotations. Because I think the mainstream media is a total joke. And I remember when, 3-4 years ago, when you attack the mainstream media, more like 10 years ago, when you attack the mainstream media, a lot of people would say, oh, you're just one of those liberal hippies, leftovers for not liking the Bush media. I remember when it was still felt like the, especially, back in the days of Bush, and I believe CNN was pretty supportive of Bush throughout the presidency. Same thing, Fox and MSNBC was the only one that's playing the other angle, the controlled opposition. Now you have, I guess you could say, the mainstream media. You have pretty much the majority. CNN, MSNBC, of course, is strongly anti-Trump, and then you have Fox News that's kind of on and off about Trump, but for the most part pro-Trump. I do see some of their hosts don't seem to fancy him so much, but to me, it's a giant psyop. This Trump, versus the so-called right versus left in America divide. They're really trying to push more than ever. That if you're not one of the, that if you're not a Trump supporter, then you're a liberal snowflake. If you're not a liberal, if you don't support Antifa or support the protests that Antifa and stuff have instigated in the country, then you're one of Trump's deplorables. Apparently, is the MO that the media is trying to push on us. It's right now. With the, you can't even say, it's like about the people that are pushing, the agendas on us, people that really control. You start talking about them, and you get, people will say that you're a, Nazi if you mention the Rothschilds. I've been told by, people, and this is why I no longer am part of the mainstream left on the internet. Even though that if people that listened to me a long time ago, by a long time, I only mean 3 or 4 years ago. But the people that listened to me back, the days when I was still on NW Truth Radio, when I was still the earlier days in Stable Radio, I was still definitely 100% not by left like you guys and Bernie Sanders and that kind of the fake, American left. I'm talking about like, Len Rocks, long live 1917, that kind of thing. Until I saw the people that were ultimately pushing that as well. And that the same dirty fingers of the Rothschilds and other top bankers were also involved with that, and that's what kind of changed. My eyes were open. About 2 years ago, I majorly changed my opinion on the Bolsheviks. I can even see that from a show in 2014 and then 2015. The one was November 2014, and the one like in December 2015, where I completely had changed my various. At one point was a very strong, I guess, support of the Soviet Union, and the thing is that I've maybe studied Russia history more than any other country on the planet, including even more than America's history. I've seen a lot of different stuff and a lot of different things, and I have to say that that's a very interesting topic. Is that there was in the Soviet Union's existence. Towards the end, at least, I would say after Stalin's demise, the Soviet Union there was some good, definitely, that I think that may have been done by the government later, and talk about the 60s, 70s, and such, but there was still a lot of wrong that was being done. The earlier years was just complete horrid nature that the government acted over there, was the destruction of old Russia as they knew it then, and we just had the 100th anniversary not that long ago. How I see politics in the modern world is that right now I'm seeing that it's a lot of stuff flipped around. Is that the old it's like the European left the European left used to be a much different thing. Now it feels like the European left more resembles the neoliberal right, of the old days, and the European right is more like how the old European left used to be. Everything's all flipped around, especially in Europe. And I've said, in my opinion, I think in some ways that the European right, such as people like Le Pen, more resemble. In some ways, they're more similar nature. Or the South American left has more in common with the European right than the European left and the South American left, because the European left is a lot of times globalist. They are they're anti-Russian and still are pushing Cold War mentality ideas on the people of Europe. And it's really, and talk about like the European left, I'm talking about people like Hollande, who was president of France for multiple years. People also like the a good portion of the Labour Party in Britain. People like Tony Blair and people of that nature. Which that's kind of been split. Jeremy Corbyn and has kind of brought a new revival, I guess you could say, to the party, and it's kind of shifted the platform. And they've definitely went away from the very strong neoliberal, trite, just really status quo politics that Tony Blair, who was pretty much best buddies of George Bush, and I see that there's there was somewhat of a turnover there in Britain, and now they're trying very hard to keep the majority still supportive of failed policies that Britain has had 20, 30 years of 20, 30 years of really, I don't see that, of a point where their people haven't really been happy with any of the politicians that they've actually had in charge. And Cameron was maybe the lowest point of that. Is that Cameron was almost like all those things combined that was wrong with Bush and all those things combined that was wrong with Obama mixed into one British, prime minister. And that's what Cameron was. And, that's, and then they ended up, and after that, they still have Theresa May, which Theresa May is just one of the most probably unliked prime ministers they've ever had over there in Britain. And the only things that are keeping these politicians in power in Europe, and I would say our own government power, is the threat that they tell us is that we're under threat from the Iranian government, from the North Korean government, from the Russian government, which, one thing they won't tell you about the Russian government is that I've heard people actually try to say that it is a communist country still. And, people legitimately believe that after 27 years after the wall fell down, that the Soviet Union is still or Russia is a communist country and is still the Soviet Union. Kind of blanked out there. And, they're trying to, it's been, if you go to when actually things really started to change in 1985 with Gorbachev coming to power, you could argue it's been 32 years since, that ended, which, the true Soviet Union. I would say that the true Soviet Union went out about the mid-80s, and after that they started reforming, things started majorly changing, really setting the stage for the mafia, and, I guess you could say the CIA directly controlling Russia, and then after Putin's, emergence to power around the turn of the millennium, and then Putin now, the whole new Russia era that we're in now, or it's been the last, about 20 years now, that, Putin's, been really, has overseen a major resurgence of Russia, of Christianity in Russia, and, of the economy in Russia, is that, people try to say that it is a very poor country, weak, that is far further thing from the truth, is that Russia is emerging again to be a superpower. And this is the hypocrisy the media loves to push, is that they'll say that Russia is a failing state, that they are a country that's not going to last, and that they have nothing on the American empire. But at the same time, they tell us how big of a threat they are and that they can control the American elections. How about the media mentions who's actually the people that interfere in those elections, does false flags, commit assassinations, kills people in other countries without any due process, and and there's actually two countries, but one actually came to mind before this one, is that Israel and then the United States. And we're talking about the Zionists that have definitely have meddled in our elections for the last, I would say, since their fucking existence started. And I've actually it's fucking insane that people still continue to defend what they do. There's no point of view besides being a traitor that you can defend what Israel's relationship with America. Because even if you're you're a big supporter of the United States military, you really believe the United States military is good and is right, they've killed our military, military personnel. They've killed twice. They've killed military personnel. They've helped terrorists kill our military personnel in the 1950s, and they attacked our military personnel directly in the 1960s. They've been caught spying on us. They have the biggest lobby in America, bigger than the NRA, bigger than any other lobby you can potentially think about. There's probably next thing they're going to be scaring people of on Facebook is the cannabis lobby or something like that. That's going to be the next big lobby they're going to scare people with, and they'll be talked about in the media. I could already see it happen. It's, grazing grazing the news lines all across America. It's like, is Potco is corrupting America? Was there money toward politicians to push legalization across America? We think so. More news about this on 8. Buy more shit, consume. That's your mainstream media for you. And what's the thing that's really sad about the mainstream media is that they're trying to push it like intellectuals believe what they're saying on MSNBC or CNN, that it's like an intellectual thing that you're, smarter than, it's like they used to direct it right to Joe Sixpack. Now they try to make it seem like, if you watch us, you're better than Joe Sixpack. And in reality, if you are misinformed, it's worse than being totally uninformed, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about, slight variance, but when you're misinformed to the level that the mainstream media, the total indoctrination and brainwashing that they're doing on behalf of the bankers, on behalf of Israel, on behalf of, and also, I won't leave out Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and all the money that they put towards financing, wars over there. Saudi Arabia is killing people by the thousands in Yemen, but you don't see that mentioned in the media. But you see, and another thing is that we're complicit in this. We're complicit. America's government, the government of America is complicit in this. And another thing is that when it talks about Trump saying that these countries are shitholes, who made them shitholes? Libya. Who made Libya a shithole? I'll give you one answer. It was the United States bombing the crap out of Libya for those couple months, NATO, and also another thing is that we financed Islamic extremist revolution in our country to overthrow Gaddafi, who had, they were fine for 42 years with Gaddafi. They like Gaddafi, and maybe the people that have things to say about Gaddafi and what and say that he was a brutal dictator, and people throw every adjective in the fucking book in order to describe how terrible Gaddafi was. How about you read some of his literature and actually read some of the accounts that's actually happening in Libya? And also, if he was such a terrible person, 6 years later, they're already gonna his son is supposed to run for president of Libya. I don't know how if he was such a terrible person, why they already want to elect his one of his direct family members. This year they're supposed to have an election in Libya. And, they've been practically in control of warlords, been in control of this corrupt puppet regime that has done nothing for the people there. And they have went back 100 years in human progress ever since we overthrew Gaddafi. And also, if you look all across the Middle East, who is helping the Middle East turn into shitholes? It is Zionist Israel. Is not just partially responsible. They're the main culprits behind the bankers. It's that ultimately, I would say Israel is like the bankers' headquarters. And, there's probably people here that are probably, it's like, I'm sure if I ever, ran for office, this whole, little rant I'm going on here is going to be they'll display this, they'll display, the worst parts on, the mainstream media. If I ever ran for any kind of office, the Senate candidate Chris Jackson Rojas it went on an anti-Semitic rant in 2018 saying that Israel was the reason that the entire Middle East turned into shitholes. But then I'd be the one that said, and did I say anything that was wrong? Because look at this, is that Israel's financed Islamic terrorism all across the Middle East. They're trained Islamic terrorism all across the Middle East. They work hand in hand with the Saudis, even though they'll deny it. They work hand in hand with the Saudis, who are known to support Al-Qaeda, ISIS and stuff like this. And they've even said, the Israelis have said that they'd rather have ISIS than Iran. So here's your logic, Israel, is that you talk about how you're under, how you want to protect the world from, scary, Muslim terrorists. But instead of having a democratic country that has elections, freedom of expression, Christians, Jews, Muslims live peacefully, have a pretty decent safety net for the citizens, now you'll support a brutal terror regime that wants to put the Middle East back to 1400 and kills people indiscriminately. Also, by the way, by 1400 is that actually probably not. It's probably even further back than that because the Islamic world during the Dark Ages is actually kind of advanced, unlike it's kind of a misconception. I mean, a lot of our modern, a lot of our things that we enjoy in the modern world is due to Islamic scholarly. But that's something that they won't tell you on the mainstream media. Just skip right past that. We're going to tell you why. We're going to tell you this new study to scare you about something that you shouldn't do. It's like, hey, did you know that reading for 2 hours a day will cause you to go blind in 10 years? More studies on this. Brought to you by this doctor that might not actually be a real doctor, but we can do it because we can lie all the fucking we want on the mainstream media. By the way, if anybody wants to call in and I won't bite. Like, don't be freaked out by my little rant here. It's just that this is me, going off. But by the way, if you just want to call in 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296, Voice of Rebellion Radio, Chris J here, live Sunday night here in Florida. And, when it comes to the Israeli government, is that these people, most of the stuff they accuse the Russian government of being, the Israeli government actually is. I mean, recently Netanyahu said that he doesn't want black people in this country. When they say all the time that Russia's bigoted, even though that they have a pretty culturally diverse country, maybe they don't have a whole lot of Africans in their country, but they do have Muslims, they have Asian people in their country living alongside with Europeans. I mean, Russia is a very diverse country spanning over 9 time zones, but they're going to accuse them of being bigoted. Meanwhile, Israel says that they've sterilized Ethiopian women. The Palestinians are not even allowed to ride on the back of the bus. They're just not even allowed to ride on the bus altogether. It's like, Palestinian, it's like, Mahmoud, you want to go on this bus? Fuck you. You can go walk on that, shitty road over there. And, and also, by the way, if you want a job over here in Israel, good luck getting that. You can just go over there, and then when you say anything on Facebook about how shitty it is having to live behind a wall with no water, no food, we're going to call you anti-Semitic and say that you guys support Islamic terror. Meanwhile, we actually support Islamic terror. ISIS is right at our border, but no one's going to believe you because we control most of the Western media. That's pretty much how it is that it's really fucked up. We send $5 billion annually to Israel. $5 billion. With $5 billion, imagine what we could do to fix some of our, we have some shitholes in America that need to be fixed. Is Trump talking about shitholes overseas? We have some shitholes here. We got Chicago, we got Detroit. It's that kind of money. And we invested into the education system. In Baltimore, you have kids going to school in Baltimore where it's like 10 degrees with no heat. They're having to wear jackets and coats in class to stay warm. We're supposed to be the greatest country on the planet, and we have kids going to school without heat. I mean, I don't think that's even a problem in countries like Lithuania and shit that, that's nowhere near having a title of best country in the world. We have enough money to be at war constantly for 17 years. And if you want to know what kind of money it costs like $100 billion to be at war for 1 month. But we don't have money to put some fucking heaters in Baltimore schools. And that's just the start of it. We have 1 in 6 children are hungry. I think that's like 1 in 6 kids are hungry in this country. I mean, we have all across America. It's not just a few cities either. It's not just like Detroit, Chicago. I mean, if you go to any major city in America, you're going to find a neighborhood of where things are really wrong and that should not happen in the first world. And granted, in every big city, in every country, there's going to be slums to some extent. There's going to be a hood, a ghetto, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be a poor neighborhood and there's going to be a richer neighborhood. And it really depends on what the drastic drop-off is like. But we have, also in Chicago, we have numbers like a war zone. because we've given up on that thing. We've given up on them, and partially also because of our gun control rules there. It's allowed free rein to criminals, but also it's a societal problem all across the board that, we're not giving these students proper education. That's one of our major things. I mean, I really am appalled, and I've talked with, multiple, when I was in school, I actually, it was kind of a weird thing is I got along with some of the teachers better than most of the students. I guess it's just I connected a little bit differently. It's that I was already doing this radio show. I guess in some ways is that my level of conversation was a little bit, past your normal teenage conversation. So when I talked with some of these teachers and they told me the kind of work that they had to go through in order to just, get their paycheck, they only make $40,000 a year. 40,000 and they work like 12, 14-hour days. I mean, they get there. Some of these high school teachers get there at 6 in the morning. 6 in the fucking morning. It's like, and then they have to be there till 7, 8 at night. And then some of these teachers, they actually take it upon themselves to, coach and do extracurricular activities, and they're there till 10 o'clock at night and stuff. And they don't get paid $40,000. So they're really like minimum wage workers practically, just working a shit ton of hours. That's what it almost ends up being, because that summer that they have off, they got workshops, they got all kinds of bullshit they have to do all throughout the summer. And the thing is but because of the standardized testing, because of this intentional dumbing down of America that they want to do, they are just making them have to push up a watered down version of what our great education system used to be. We used to be number one in the world in education. Now we're down with like countries like Lithuania and Estonia. And I don't mean to shit on Lithuania and Estonia, but it just like what comes to mind is like a mid-level country that's not really that important on the world stage, and also is not in Africa. It's really, I guess this is my way of putting it. I'm just going to go default to list. Anyways, that's the ones we're actually, like, if you look at the board of countries we're near, there's like Vietnam, Estonia, there's like us, Armenia, countries that really don't have a big part on the world stage, and we're right with them. We're supposed to be the number one superpower in the world. We used to have the number one education system, but we have enough ability to give $5 billion annually to those shitheads and the Israeli government in Tel Aviv, who soon, we're gonna be, we just recognized their embassy about a month ago as being in Jerusalem. It's just like, that's a way of saying, yeah, fuck you, Palestine, and any idea of a solution. We're going to, we're just going to recognize the Israeli embassy as being in Jerusalem. Which is not something, people act like this is only a Trump move. Obama said he wanted to do. I remember clearly when Obama said it at the 2012 DNC that he wanted to do that. He wanted to move the embassy to Jerusalem. And all these people that get all nostalgic about Barack Obama is that where was Barack Obama? Where was this great humanitarian leader? Where was he when the Israelis, or one of our closest allies, were bombing the shit out of Palestine for a month in 2014? Where the fuck was he? Probably golfing. Just like Trump does, because they're all the same. And people, and the thing is how I see it is, this is my outrage that I'm demonstrating on this show is where we should be at. There's no excuse to be in the dark anymore. We're in 2018, folks. If you look at it this way, we've been at war for 17 fucking years. That is way too long. This is where almost to the point where someone that was 18 in 2001 could have had a kid then. And now the kids, in one more year, will be old enough to go to war. This is now becoming a multi-generational war and ultimately for gold, oil, and diamonds. And also the heroin epidemic that opium is, that the opium being transported to Afghanistan is fueling. I keep seeing, thing after thing about the opium epidemic in America. Or why don't we mention that the United States soldiers that are supposed to be protecting, United States soldiers that are supposed to be representing our country, that are supposed to, by our evil government, are protecting opium fields overseas to help in the illegal drug trade, that the CIA is the biggest transporter of drugs around the world. They're the cocaine importation agency. They should have absolutely no credibility whatsoever. And if you look at another thing, look at another thing here, is that the Cocaine Importation Agency, I mean, you even had Pablo Escobar admit that this is the role the CIA has. They are the main facilitator, they're the main enabler, and they're the main trafficker of drugs worldwide. Our government and top politicians are banking shitloads of money off of it. And if you want to look at another, talk about the people that seem to be at the forefront of all things illegal, look at Israel. One of the top organ traffickers from the world was Israeli. Their finances of terrorism. The Israeli government do false flags all around the world with the Mossad. They've been involved in things from Argentina to London. Mossad and the CIA, the MI6, these are the real terrorist agencies they should be looking at. And here's the things that unfortunately many people will just say, well, we'll just vote, this way or another. Now it's the elections have become such a joke in America that it's between we used to be a TV reality star versus another TV reality star. I mean, Oprah Winfrey is going to be the person that's going to save America. It's like that was almost as ridiculous as the people saying that Donald Trump was going to save America. And now we're at the same point. It's just going to continue. If Oprah Winfrey wins in 2020, we're going to be at the same shit that we were here in 2018. And honestly, I think we're not too far away with Trump's posturing with the Iranian government recently. We're not too far from a war. And Netanyahu made a declaration that he wants Congress to make a decision by February. Doesn't that say at all that Netanyahu is trying to demand a foreign government to go to war on behalf of his country, his illegal state? And here's the thing, is that I have no problem with Jewish people living in Palestine. I have no problem with Jewish people as a whole. But the illegal seizure of the land that the Palestinians own by the Zionists is a major atrocity, and it's still being held up to this day. And they commit war crimes daily. They do things that if any other country did, we would hear about. This should be what outrages people. And talking about a shithole. Just look at all these countries that have been destroyed by the Zionist United States, Saudi policy in the Middle East. Iraq, Yemen, Libya, Syria. Even though they haven't been totally destroyed, they have been set far back because of what has been done by the financing of Islamic terrorists in their country. The Free Syrian Army, ISIS, whatever the fuck you call them. It's just the same coalition of terrorists, the same shit, all across the board. Mismo mierda. And that's what I almost feel like at this point, is that, probably, I'm at this point, I'm like Dennis Reynolds in, It's Always Sunny. My rage is untethered, and it knows no bounds. Today's just one of those days where it's just gonna be a rant. And it's gonna be a long-ass rant, probably. At least, you guys are getting an entertaining show tonight. I got a lot of energy. I haven't done anything all day. I had, the only thing I did really was watch football earlier today, which, switching up the subject, well, it was a pretty fucking amazing game. Anybody was watching that, and I missed the ending of the Minnesota and, New Orleans game. I mean, holy shit, that was crazy. Minnesota's, got a winning drive. It's like 10 seconds remaining. The guy, he gets the ball, he spins around away from the New Orleans defender, goes running right down the field, right, and into the end zone with no time remaining. Walk-off win, game over. And I mean, it was also the other, crazy game to watch was that, Jacksonville-Pittsburgh game, 45-42, and Jacksonville going to the AFC Championship game to play the New England Patriots, which I think now all of a sudden Jacksonville's got a bunch more fans, because that's how it is every year. Whoever New England's playing, that other team is going to have a lot of fans, because people hate New England. And I'm not a big fan of New England either, but I'm a Bucs fan. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area. I'm a Bucs fan, but the Bucs are 5-11 this year. They're not in the playoffs. Jacksonville's the only Florida team that's still left. I gotta admit, I like Jacksonville's story. 10 years since they went to the playoffs. Whenever just a Florida team makes it this far, it's always fun to watch. I mean, even if it's the Miami Heat, I mean, only team I really don't care for maybe in Florida would be the Miami Dolphins, but pretty much whenever a Florida team gets deep in the playoffs, I'm gonna be somewhat a fan. And, also yesterday's games, I mean, yeah, the Patriots, they I don't know, it's the funny thing, I'm scared for, Jacksonville. They absolutely, tore up the Tennessee Titans, and, also the other game yesterday that was pretty good was that Eagles-Falcons game. Which I gotta say, there's a lot of interesting stories. I mean, the Falcons, who were the defending Super Bowl champs, got knocked out in the second round. The Eagles, who, I mean, they haven't done anything in a long time. I mean, what was last time? Like 2004, who they played the Patriots and lost. That was back in the days of McNabb. But the Eagles haven't done anything in about 12, 13 years, and now they are at the verge of going to the Super Bowl. Even though I don't think they'll beat Minnesota, I think Minnesota's got now that they got so much momentum behind them that I don't see them Minnesota losing in the NFC Championship. But you know, Minnesota has had a lot of deep runs that have ended very tragically, for missed field goals and stuff like that. And they've had 4 Super Bowls where they didn't win. They have never won the Super Bowl. Minnesota, though, is looking to win the first Super Bowl at home, because that's gonna be hosted in Minnesota. And like I said, I don't know how you Northerners do it. Go to games when it's negative 15 degrees. I mean, I gotta say, I commend you for being real fans of the sport, because it's like here in Florida, I live in St. Pete, so the Rays are right down the road, Tropicana Field. And if it's raining at game time, the attendance drops off by like 27%. There's like a rule of that. If it rains before a game in Florida, the attendance is going to severely drop off, because a lot of our fans are old people that are not really going to go out if it's raining or any kind of shitty weather conditions. Like tonight's one of those nights where not a lot of people are out because it's kind of shitty for Florida standards. It's in the 40s. Last night it was in the 40s. It was clouds and wind. It was shit. I mean, we don't have too many of those days here. That's why it's nice to live here. But there's also a lot of downsides to living here, of course. But that's the main reasons that are in winter, while you guys are up there and it's 2 degrees outside and there's a blizzard. It might be 65 degrees out here. It might even be a beach day. I mean, I went to the beach before on the 29th of December, I think. I've been to the beach before, and the water wasn't even that cold. It was like kind of a nice beach day. This year we didn't get the luck of that. It got cold, right at the end of the month, right at the end of December. So we didn't get we didn't get a very warm holidays like we get some years where we get 80s. We got a couple days that were really cold. In fact, we had one day here that was about 34 one night here. Doesn't happen too often. And there was snow I think it was the same night there was snow up in Tallahassee. So in the Florida Peninsula, snow on the same day as here. They were, at one point, they were thinking there was going to be snow across the Bay Area. They gave it a chance on the weather, but it didn't end up happening. Now getting back on topic to the real shit, to the real news and not the fake news. I wonder, the whole thing is that's ironic is that the people that say, oh yeah, MSNBC, CNN, they're fake news, but Fox News is totally credible. It's like, people only see their side. It's like they only see that the liberal news is fake, but the conservative news is apparently totally true, or that the conservative news is fake, but the liberal news is totally true. I think a lot of people are starting to realize across the spectrum CNN is fake news. But this is stuff that I've said since 2010, that CNN is fake news. You know, us people here in the Truzer community, we haven't differed on it, and it's weird watching the mainstream finally realizing some of this stuff. And, you know, the mainstream also finally realizing, you know, how quickly, you know, there's been some good stuff recently, like the, quick, realization across, you know, America that marijuana is not the worst thing, imaginable, and that, maybe it should be legalized all across the board, you know, all across the United States, and people are starting to really realize the medical value of it, and, that we've been swayed by archaic and racist beliefs of the plant for a long time, and you know what it's done to this country by the war on drugs is so much more corrosive than any use of the drug itself. And you know, I'm not one to say that, you know, marijuana is perfect for everybody. I think it's just that the adults should have a choice. It's just like they have a choice for alcohol, but I do think it's better than alcohol, and it has many uses to cure 34 compounds of cancer. And I'm glad to see California legalizing it, and I'm glad that Sessions looks like he got stopped in his tracks to try to put some kind of federal crackdown, which I don't even know if it's possible at this point. But you know, Jeff Sessions, you fucking racist Keebler elf. Yeah, you're not gonna. It's too late, bud. That ship's already sailed, because most of the people in this country now, that's like one thing that's been united left to right. I see conservatives, liberals. I see people all across that are supporting the legalization of marijuana, and even in Florida, one of the most conservative states in the country, is now starting to go towards a legalization. This state actually now has pretty accessible medical, something that wouldn't have been dreamed of 8 years ago. And as we get towards the end of the Rick Scott era, I mean, we have the potential that maybe one of the biggest pro-marijuana politicians may become the governor. I mean, John Morgan, who might have a lot of other things might be corrupt about him, but you know, one thing I have to hand it to him, that he has spent a lot of money trying to push legal marijuana in the state. Well, definitely medical marijuana. He was pretty much the main person that got this across. Which, if you're not familiar with John Morgan, if you're from another state, because I'm pretty sure everyone in Florida has seen his commercials, the radio commercials, but in other states, he's pretty much just a very prominent lawyer that runs a law firm, Morgan & Morgan, that's based out of, I think, Tampa. He's all the time on our TV, on our commercials, and I guess you could say that really he's probably classified in your like level lawyers that you're pretty much like an ambulance chasing, I take every kind of lawsuit type of lawyer. But, you know, I'm not going to be so quick to judge the guy because I don't know too much about the guy. But he did push medical marijuana for the state and got it. You know, that was a part of why it's passed. And for that is a very big thing, worth an applause, to my opinion. That's you know, he spent a lot of money apparently of his own cash in order to push that. And that is one of the things that gives me hope, is that, you know, as I see that the relaxation on medical marijuana, legal marijuana in this country, and that the war on drugs, as we know it, there might be a change in the way that it's thought. And I don't think they're going to scrap the war on drugs altogether, but I think that there will be a massive shift in maybe the way certain things are handled. You know, back in the 80s, we used to go very hard, you know, very draconian, as we gave out these, you know, tremendous sentences to people that were accused of selling, mainly crack in the urban neighborhoods, and it mainly only targeted them, and it didn't really target white people so much in the 80s, and, you know, a whole lot of, I mean, a major reason why the disproportionate amount of minorities are in the prisons is because of the war on drugs. And, you know, what's funny is that how people will talk about how Ron Paul is racist and stuff like that, when he's been one of the biggest pushers to end the racist war on drugs. You know, I think a lot of people, it's weird how people still get have distilled this view, like, out of, like, utter shock whenever something racist happens in the government, in a corporation, been realizing that a lot of the stuff is systematic. And I'm not one of those people that's going to say that, that it's black people exclusively that's had it hard. It's people of all races, colors, everybody in this country that's had it hard for the last few decades thanks to our government. But definitely it seems that there is in certain ways the minorities have, different minorities, blacks, Latinos, have had it much harder when it comes to the way that they were targeted in the war on drugs, the way that they've been portrayed in the media, especially, and then the most marginalized group, Muslim community, like I said, is that how they've tried to, with different ways, I've tried to make them look like the villains, for many years, and this could be evident, when's the last time how many times have you seen a Muslim bad guy in a movie? Oh, many times. But, when was the last time that you saw an Israeli bad guy? Which is more accurate, because like I said, is that the Israelis, when it comes to organized crime, a lot of times an Israeli guy right behind it. The Israeli, of course, the Israeli lobby has a lot of influence all across the media. It's not just politics. The Israeli lobby has shifted our culture. And so has the military-industrial complex. They have completely restructured our people to be warlike and very stubborn, to believe anything different on I guess you could say the principles of modern American society, and the things that we protect so dearly nowadays have definitely changed from what used to be so dearly protected. And if you know what I mean by that, is that nowadays these ideas of it didn't used to be always like this, where Israel was put at the forefront of, seems like, of all our foreign policy, of everything, foreign policy. Is in the Middle East. How is it going to affect Israel? How is it going to, is it in our own best interest? We should ask. Is it in the best interest of those people in the Middle East that are actually doing things in those countries? Here's how I should see it. We should take our hands off all those Middle Eastern countries. We have no point. There's no reason for us to be there. There's absolutely no reason why we should be we should have troops. We have troops in Yemen. We have, and then we've seen the biggest blunder recently was Pakistan. How long we were involved with Pakistan, and now Pakistan says they don't want anything to do with us anymore. It would only be a blunder, this idea of countries saying that they don't want anything to do with us. It's that this is how our whole existence of the complex that surrounds Washington, D.C., the whole complex that surrounds Washington, D.C. is based on acting like a hawk against these Middle Eastern countries and third world countries and feasting off of the despair and agony. Resources taken that belong to them, taking them away. And it's the hypocrisy of the U.S. empire is that when Russia, when they had the Crimea voted to become part of Russia because they were being targeted by a neo-Nazi regime in Kiev, we called them colonizers. Is that the only people that can be colonizers are the people that are enemies to the empire. The United States empire, there's the U.S. Saudi empire. If you're an enemy to them, then you can be a colonizer. But to us, we're never colonizers, even though that we've been involved in more coups, we've been involved in more election meddling, we have done so much fuckery all across the third world that's ridiculous. Even in Southeast Asia, think about the war that we did in Vietnam. We were involved with coups down there. Two words, Mohammed Mossadegh. In 1953, they admitted that we did that in Iran, and then they wonder why there was such a violent reaction 20-something years later to Americans in the West. That's why. And also, I don't see the people that say the connection. They try to say that Ayatollah is secretly a CIA asset or whatever. It's absolutely absurd. But some of that I think comes from direct Saddam propaganda. That's like the kind of stuff Saddam Hussein used to say. Which that is one person. That's the one lone guy that the media, said was a shithead that actually was a shithead. There's not too many where the media was actually right to an extent. And when it goes to Saddam, it was true. But Saddam was a scapegoat. And ultimately he was the direct result of U.S. foreign policy. And what we did to Iraq afterwards made Saddam's crimes look pretty small. I mean, Saddam did a whole lot of shit, but what we did in Iraq, what we did in Afghanistan, and what they want to do in Syria and Iran, this is the United States regime. Our government has killed maybe 20 to 30 million people since 1945, since World War II, this is absolutely insane. The Israeli government as well has also killed probably, I've been figuring, I think 5.1 million Palestinians have died in the last 70 or so years. A country with 8 million people have killed 5.1 million people in the last 70 years. Where's the outrage over that? But they talk about these fictional Russian assassinations that they said that the Putin has killed people. Where's the evidence that Putin has killed anyone? Where is it? And then I get the same regurgitated bullshit from people out there, and here's what I have to say is that we are running out of time, folks. Because, as you can see right now, the march towards a world war is getting quicker and quicker. And, I called it before that it would be I thought it was going to be a lot sooner. When did I say? I think I said that was going to happen by the end of 2015 or something like that. And there were some delays to that. I think I said at one point the end of 2014, which, yeah, now it's been almost 4 years since that. We haven't gone to war. But I think this is part of the game, is brinksmanship leading up to it and keeping them at least scared until they actually do it. And they're thinking that my country might be next. Be careful what political moves I do. Lebanon, comes to mind. Iraq, because they've kind of fallen back they're not really pro-American. They're more pro-Iranian. And the other Middle Eastern countries, they know that they need to watch their backs. And it's the whole Middle East, this, people will try to say it's the culture, people will try to say that other factors. How about it's bombing them? That's the reason why those countries are shitholes. And, Trump saying, shithole is not what made me mad. It's what we did to make those countries shitholes and what makes me angry. And it's Mexico, even like what we did to them, interfering with their politics, and all across South America, why we have many immigrants from the Latin America, is because we've been involved with coups, we just did a coup in 2009, and talk about the other side, the two sides, how they're exactly the same. Hillary Clinton was a major part of overthrowing Manuel Zelaya in 2009, and they replaced it with a right-wing dictator in the Honduras. If you look at what they've done, look what they have done to Colombia for the last 70 years. They've been involved in so much, supporting of terrorist groups such as the paramilitaries and the man Alvaro Uribe, who I think Alvaro Uribe is going to go down as one of the most vile men in South American history, right up there with Pinochet. Alvaro Uribe has supported paramilitary groups. He has lied to the Colombian population many times on the threat of the left guerrilla groups that is non-existent. And as we've seen, that they've laid down their arms now, and it's over. And now finally the people, as we've shown in the polls, that the left is actually winning now in Colombia, because it's no longer was the fictional threat of a left-wing guerrilla uprising. The people are now are more inclined to vote right, or to vote for the left candidates. People, and I know that, what's the sad thing is there's probably going to be some idiots 30, 40 years from now, they'll feel it's funny to talk about Pinochet financing paramilitaries or something like that. There's going to be like that, how like people think it's funny about that, throwing people out of helicopters. Throwing commies out of helicopters. Honestly, it's not funny. That is the kind of, if that's your sense of humor, if that's the funniest thing you can think of in a rebuttal with somebody, then your argument wasn't too good to begin with. It's like, I'll just throw you out of a helicopter, commie, lel. Same shit, is that most of the people in Chile will tell you how bad it was. Is that they disappeared people in black vans. A lot of the things that the anarcho-capitalists that support Pinochet, which I'm not saying that that all anarcho-capitalists support Pinochet, I'm not even saying the majority do, but that group that talks about black vans and stuff, coming to our doors, that's what literally Pinochet did. So it's an oxymoron, liberty in the Pinochet regime. And, there's definitely, like, I was thinking about anarcho-capitalists, it's like I said, is that there's definitely that fragment of them. I can't tell if they're trolling. And there's ones I definitely can respect. And I could just, that fragment, but I guess you could say the fascilitarians. I like, that's a good term for them. And that's the thing is that anybody that determine it's like, oh yeah, you're a fucking statist, but I think we should also have a group that throws people out of helicopters because, do the very thing that we say we're against, suppress people because of political beliefs. By the way, if anybody wants to call in, it's going to be 718-717-8296, 717-8296 here at Voice of Rebellion Radio. You're on UCY.tv. This is Chris J here, about halfway through the show. So, yeah, Colombia, they're having an election in May of later this year, and it's going to be between his last name is Fajardo. So I don't want to totally mispronounce because I've never heard it actually said. I've just seen it in like news links and stuff like that. It's apparently like the forerunner right now. Fajardo. I'm not exactly sure. I speak Spanish, but I'm not sure how you pronounce that guy's name. And then there's and I've never heard it, but like ever, being in Colombia, that's somebody's last name or something like that. So, it's not, I don't think it's too common of a name. Maybe it is. And then I know there's, Duque, Ivan Duque, I think is the guy's name. That's Uribe Altaribe candidate for, president. He's in second place. Then they have the current vice president of the, really the same shit. Santos is pretty much the same shit as Uribe, but his vice president, German Vargas, is in third place. And then I think in fourth place is Gustavo Petro. It's kind of interesting that Gustavo Petro is all the way down in fourth place. It's kind of weird that he's in fourth and then there's the other left candidate in first. I think they were going to make some kind of coalition. Official coalitions have not been officially set yet. And we'll probably be seeing that in the next couple of weeks or so, like the official different coalitions for president. I'm sure they'll try to consolidate. And also, I think even also running this election is Timoshenko. Very interesting that the CFARC no longer an insurgent group, but now is a political party inside Colombia. They're going to get like 5 guaranteed parliament seats. And also they're going to get the chance to run for president, even though Timoshenko's going to lose, but, he still will run. I almost think that that really, the Colombian government, used for many years, they used FARC as a tool in order to push across their, the push across some of the more draconian measures and to justify the paramilitary's existence, which were death squads. They eliminated community organizers. They've eliminated dissidents. The paramilitaries do the dirty work that the government doesn't want to do, and they're a big part of the Colombian society. Is that ultimately Uribe has been linked to paramilitary groups, but they deny it. and somehow Uribe still is able to have this major hand in Colombian politics. Uribe, I know, is also apparently kind of in with Trump, so that makes me think that Uribe is going to get his candidate across. The U.S. is going to intervene and put Duque in as president at the end. I hope not, but it's definitely a possibility, as they've interfered in many elections before. I'm hoping that the left candidate will win this time around. This is finally This is finally the time, because Colombia is the only government in Latin America that did not swing away from the American empire in recent years. Every country pretty much there. Brazil did, Argentina did, Venezuela did, Ecuador did, Bolivia did, Peru did. Now Chile has also swung to the right as well. It is unfortunate news that Piñera, and I don't think there was any real candidate that the left had in this race. They didn't really have it was bound to happen. And unfortunately, it's sad that Piñera has been pushed across, as Piñera is a Pinochet apologizer, and he is not a good candidate for Chile's history. Pinochet, his legacy still kind of haunts South America altogether, because there ultimately is, though, the people that still like Pinochet across the country. I'm not sure why. Across the continent, he has his supporters. And I think Pinochet has his supporters. It's really based in the oligarchies of the countries and the super rich that push propaganda across to the poor peoples of South America. And what's ironic is some of the most right-wing people in South America are often the poorest people. Is that it's very ironic when I see in Colombia people supporting the Conservative Party in Colombia, which is one of the more right-wing parties in Colombia, maybe right behind Central Democrático. And these people are, they'll have a rundown, almost like a hut of a house. Colombia is in our country that I would say, when it comes to the government has made Colombia somewhat of a shithole over the years, and that's the saying that, in a way, Trump said the truth when he called these third world countries what they are shitholes. Africa, he called Haiti a shithole, but there's a reason why they're shitholes. In Haiti, there was a coup that I think just happened a few years ago, and if you look in Latin America, there's been so many coups, so many terrible governments installed, like the one in Honduras that was installed. Paraguay was another parliamentary coup where they overthrew Fernando Lugo and put in Horacio Cartes, aka the guy in South America that you literally never hear anything about. Well, in his country they have worse violence than Venezuela, but it's never mentioned because it's a United States ally. So Senor Cartes doesn't get too much media coverage, and also Paraguay is not really a very big country you don't hear anything about, really. Even when Fernando Lugo was in power, you didn't really hear too much about the country. It is kind of like the forgotten country, I guess you could say, in South America. It's like right up there with Suriname. No one knows anything about Suriname. Cool trivia about that is that they're the only Dutch-speaking country in South America. Guyana is the only English-speaking country. Suriname is the only Dutch-speaking country, and they're actually they're to the they're to the east of Guyana, Suriname. It's also a very ethnically diverse country. I've looked into it. I would hope maybe one day I'll get to travel there. It seems like a very it's not a big tourist spot. It'd be kind of cool to see that place up close, and see really something that's not that far from Colombia, but it's very different than Colombia, as it's almost more European in some ways, from what I've read online, than it is South American in their culture. It's kind of a blend of different cultures. By the way, if anybody wants to call in, the call-in number is going to be 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296. 8296. Voice of Rebellion Radio, Chris J here on Sunday night live here at UCY.tv. And so going back to what I was talking about earlier is that when it came to the Colombian elections and everything, is that Colombia, by the way, they have elections every 4 years like America. They just have them, they just started doing that. They used to go every 6 years, I believe. And then Uribe changed the constitution where he could run again and stay for a little bit longer. So now they have re-elections. They didn't used to have re-elections in Colombia. He was the first president to be re-elected to a second term. And now Santos was re-elected in 2014 when he faced it was really just a shit versus shit election it was him or one of Uribe's right-hand men, Oscar Zalunga. So now Colombia is about to go past Santos, and hopefully. By the way, the little background on the one guy was saying Fajardo, Fajardo. I'm guessing Fajardo. You know how we pronounce J in Spanish. Fajardo. No. I'll give it my best crack at it. I've never heard it pronounced, but apparently he's leading. He's a little background. He's I think only 56 from what I read. He'd be one of the so he'll be one of the younger Latin American leaders. He used to be the mayor of Medellin, which is the third biggest city in Colombia, next to Bogota, and who's number two? I think number 2 is Cali, which is another big city on the Pacific coast. Medellin's never been there. Apparently, it's a very beautiful city. Been to Bogota, but never been to Medellin or Cali. Never been to the Pacific region. One of the biggest cities, was the mayor of one of the biggest cities in Colombia. And he was he was a member of, or he's been a member for like the last 5 or 6 years of the Green Party, Colombia, which has been typically in league with the government of Colombia. But they've recently made a little bit of a swing to the and they've had a tendency to do so, of swinging to the left at times. And but they never have totally devoted themselves to the left of Colombia. And Jorge Robledo and him have taken pictures together. Jorge Robledo was going to be the main candidate, and at one point he was like the first candidate to declare his candidacy for the Colombian election. However, it looks like they have teamed up together, and they decided that I guess somebody with a little bit more name recognition. Even though the Jorge Robledo was one of the most liked senators in Colombia at the time of his candidacy, and he's now that party that he was like the leader of, the Alternative Democratic Pole Party. This is like the only real party that actually declared their opposition to the Santos government. They teamed up with the Green Party, and it seems to be more of the Green Party conceding with the Polo Party rather than the other way around. And the Polo Party's definitely lost a little bit of their radical nature. I mean, the thing is that a lot of these people are kind of people who used to be a lot more radical, and they came to the politics and they moderated. A lot of these people are former M19 guerrillas and stuff like that, former guerrillas that have since moderated over the years. But the Partido, Alternative Democratic Pole Party and Green Party of Colombia, they're going to make some kind of coalition. But the thing is, it looks like the left is splintered. Like I was saying before, so they got Timochenko, Gustavo Petro, and Fajardo all splitting the left vote up together. While unfortunately, it seems like the right vote, I guess is really because really German Vargas is only he's more of a centrist candidate. He represents more of the center in Colombia. So the right's they're all going to vote more toward Ivan Duque, who right now is in second place. I feel like they got a little bit more unity. and there are candidates than the left does. And that's the thing, is that Timoshenko, I feel, could steal some of the far left vote in Colombia away from whoever is actually nominated to be in the the left green coalition there. And with the potential of that plus Gustavo Petro, he could really take a lot. Gustavo Petro was also another former major mayor of Colombia, but he was the mayor of Bogota. And there was a lot of scandal around him, and Gustavo Petro, I don't know if maybe his name should even, the media really doesn't seem to like him, but I fear though that if Gustavo Petro gets near the whatever left coalition, because they've associated Gustavo Petro as being like a communist and stuff like that, and mostly like having connections directly to Venezuela, apparently. It's what they've accused him. At least that's what I was reading in the one of the bigger newspapers down there, the Pan Am Post. They're pretty interesting to read when you're looking about South American politics, because you really don't get anything in our mainstream media about the politics of some of these countries down. Just right there, our neighbors practically, the South American countries. We know nothing about their politics. And it's pretty interesting because there's that big divide. Right now in Argentina, I know they're getting closer. Now Kirchner's working her way back towards popularity, and there's a good possibility that Kirchner is going to be back. Cristina Fernandez Kirchner will be back for 2019, and she might be voted back as president, because Marcio Macri has been horribly unpopular. And also in 2018, this year, there's supposed to be a election in Brazil, and I'm actually not sure on the status of Lula's candidacy, because Lula was expected, he was like the favorite to win in 2018, the former Brazilian president. But then they put some kind of indictment on him where he can't run, and so now with that involved, it seems to be a lot of bullshit, the whole Brazilian situation. And they're trying to save the completely failed. I mean, at this point, it's not the failing; it is the failed Michael Temer regime that nobody wants to support. Michael Temer quickly, from the point that he was selected as president, he quickly had no favor to this presidency, as took over on September 1st, 2016. And became the prime minister, or I think the president, officially president of Brazil. And now it's been over a year or so. He was also, I think, the acting, while Dilma Rousseff was suspended. Michael Temer was acting president from May onward. And I'm gonna check that out right now. Let's see if I can find about Brazil's situation, because I haven't read about it a little bit. The first thing that comes up with Brazil when you type into Google is Brazil's waxing. Of course, Google's mind is in the gutter. Let's see, Brazil's. Brazil's 2018 election. Also, I do apologize if there's been audio problems in the show today. I know that I was having some internet problems today, so I don't know how the audio is coming about. There might be hoping it didn't come out to be too laggy. By the way, their elections in Brazil is supposed to be in October of this year. So about 9 months. Let's see, it's supposed to be on October 7th. And in 2014, actually, people forget that Dilma Rousseff was actually reelected in 2014. In the second round, was 51.6% of the vote. Rousseff was also elected in 2010, succeeding her political mentor, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, which is the Lula da Silva was the candidate that was there in 2003 to 2011. I guess he's the face of the Brazilian left. let's see what the opinion polls say. Even though we know these are not so accurate, but let's see. When was the last time they even had an opinion poll? Let's see, up in December, I see there was a poll, and pretty much most of the opinion polls they got, it's between Lula or Bolsonaro. For the last one, Lula won. Looks like it was only 29% of the vote, but Lula, actually Bolsonaro wins a few of these. Oh wait, there's some of these that don't even have Lula in them, so I see like there's a few that Lula didn't win because he's not in the, polling race. Let's see. And Temer, showing there was actually only one that shows it here, and it has Temer with 1% of the vote. There was an opinion poll back in November. He would only get 1%. That's how unpopular he is. I know he had like a 3% approval rating, and, Lula wins most of these polls though. I mean, the majority's definitely going to Lula, and, this is just like all across the board, ever since they started doing these opinion polls, I mean, going back through May, just a whole lot of red, and then way back, this is before the original, if you go through the scandal, and the whole, when Rousseff was impeached and everything, Lula still won the opinion votes on all throughout. It's not recent where Bolsonaro's received more support, but still, definitely looks like he is the favorite to win. The only thing is that is he even allowed to win? And it looks like there is the court upholds a decision that Sergio Moro put through. He would be ineligible to run the 2018 election. So that's the main thing, that they have like a court hearing that they put against him. But that's if it holds up. And Lula, he went through he had at one point had throat cancer, like many of the Latin American leaders. Going back in 2011, the same year that Chavez also got cancer. Let's see. But he was treated, and says the cancer went into remission in March 2012. So, he actually recovered, unlike, Kirchner, after Kirchner and Hugo Chavez both died. And most of the leaders in Latin America, like I said, is that I think Evo Morales, had cancer at one point. I think even, Rafael Correa, practically the entirety of the continent's, leaders, and there seems to be a little bit, suspicion, and I know that this technology I think the CIA has admitted this kind of technology, that they have the cancer weapon, and, that they could, give a enemy leader potentially cancer, and I think they did that. I'm wondering when will be the time that the Venezuelan government will finally come out and say, similar how to the Arafat, it came out that he was potentially poisoned, that the Venezuelan government will say, hey, look, it looks like there might have been something that happened. Well, which they said at first, yeah, I think Maduro accused it at first of giving Chavez the cancer. So I remember that he had the health problems. I'm looking at Morales's, personal life here. Let's see. By the way, Evo Morales is the first ever was the first ever Democratic elected president from, I think, Latin America, was indigenous from the indigenous majority in the country. They have 55% of Bolivia is 55% of the country is indigenous now. There was only one other, I think, candidate, or one other leader, which was one of the presidents of Mexico, Benito Juarez. He was the president of Mexico, and he was the first ethnic indigenous leader ever to be a president of a Latin American country. He was also there apparently during the. Was he there when? I thought he was there when the French invaded. And there was a split because the French backed the Second Mexican Empire, while Benito Juarez backed the Republic, which who's that? The emperor was Maximilian the First, which was this guy even from Mexico? It looks from Austria, so it was like an Austrian guy. So that's all. It's weird how little we know about that, about the history of our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south. Is that the whole point with Mexico through an empire? There were a fight between the Republic and the Empire there. There was the French invasion of Mexico. We know very little about Latin America's history, and they I think so much for a reason is that they have socially conditioned people to accept America's role as an empire, and that what our government does is imperial force, is that it's not a force to protect the people of America. And what's actually done, our military actually has endangered endangered many Americans overseas by the kind of legacy that we've left for our people, about the American people. And, it's done, and I know it's definitely hurt the reputation, of Americans as a whole. And when it comes to, as well as the Israelis, it's similar to the Israelis, is that, one of the best quotes, most ingenious quotes I've ever heard, is that the Israelis use Jews as a human shield. Is that's what ends up hurting, the most. Who actually ends up hurting, Jewish people worldwide the most is probably the Zionist government, because the Zionist government, they're the main ones that fuel anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish sentiments around the world. It's the Zionists doing it themselves, because a lot of that is a reaction to the atrocities being committed in Palestine, and also, what global Zionism has done to the world. And that's what I'm talking about, the Israeli lobby. This idea that all around the world countries must bow down and support Israel. And this is a theme in the Israeli leadership, and that they believe not only that they're 100% entitled to that land, that they should not have to share that with the Palestinians. But they believe to the world, these people at the top, they believe that ethnically Jewish people are superior to everyone else, and that's evident by many of their statements that you can look at the top rabbis, top Zionist leaders, Israeli leaders, have said over the years. And it's not just a few anomalies either, it is a repeating pattern that the Zionists have continued to push this idea on the world, also that they're a victim and that they're surrounded by 2 billion enemies. They always say that, that they're surrounded by so many Arab countries. How could we ever be a threat to those Arab countries? And that's entirely not true when most of the Arab leaders around them are influenced by the Zionist state. The Zionists are, the Zionists love to play the victim. They love to play they love to play innocent. But ultimately, what they are doing, what people should remember, is that the Zionists are receiving $5 billion that could be going to our people. When they're a thriving country, what has Israel ever done to us, or what? Not to us. They have done stuff to us, but what have they ever done for us? What have we? But what? And they try to make it seem like that we don't do enough for them. They guilt their allies and the people of their allies into making it seem like that they've been mistreated, neglected by said allies government. That way that the people push, they make it seem like the problem with anything is that we don't support Israel enough. And that's what you see in this country, is that you have people that actually legitimately believe that we don't do enough for the Israeli government and the Israeli people. well, that's the furthest thing from the truth, is that it has gone so absurd, the amount of support and aid that the American government has given to the Zionist beast. It's absolutely insane. $5 billion annually, and also $8 million per day. $8 million a day. Actually, no, it's more than that. I think it's $15 million a day. $15 million a day going to Israel. Think about that. $15 million a day. Break that down even further. Go for 24 hours a day. That's about $800,000 an hour going to the Israeli government for doing nothing. You know, and that's not even counting like bonus packages and stuff. It's fair to say there's probably at least maybe $1.5 million per hour going over there. And you divide that by 60. That gives you, let's see, so I said 1.5 million. So we divide that by 60, so 150,000. Let's see, go by. I would say at the very minimum, 25. That means like $25,000 to $30,000 a minute is going a minute. So like in the duration of me having to figure that out, that calculation, about $30,000 has went to the Israeli government to do towards the Zionist machine for doing nothing. I mean, 15 million daily. This is plus 5 billion annually. And you know, there's also the billion for a matter of how many years? I think it was only it was a matter of like 5-10 years. I don't know, like $80 billion we're going to give to them for doing nothing, just for them existing, pretty much. They don't do anything for us. They don't do, you know, and then the countries have actually done stuff for us. For example, like the Venezuelan government gave heating oil to poor people in the north when it was during some brutal winters, and the United States government was not at all grateful for that. But the Israeli government has killed our servicemen. They have spied on us. They have, like, how many times I have to say, you know, there's nothing good I can think that they've done. It's a parasitic relationship that the Zionist state has with America. And until we cut ourselves free, we're going to be going the wrong direction. And I think, unfortunately, like I said, is that they control too much. They control too much of the media. And I don't care how many people are going to say that's anti-Semitic propaganda that I'm pushing out there. It's just the truth. Is that if you look at when's the last time have you seen on the media them say anything, you know, good about the Palestinians? And you know, people will try to argue it though. They'll try to say that I've heard people even try to say that like our media is anti-Israeli, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, even this is like every now and then somebody from the more, you know, somebody from the, you know, this kind of stuff that's, you know, libertarians and stuff. Why I've also I used to be a little bit more involved with them, and I kind of distanced myself from them. So when I realized that many libertarians like Israel, and even I said Gary Johnson likes Israel, and I saw one time a libertarian claiming that about that our government or that our media is not pro-Israel. And I'm like, what kind of rock have you been living in? Have you watched anytime there's a war between the Palestinian and between the Palestinians and Israelis, or I should say genocide that the Israelis are committing against the Palestinians? Have you ever seen them actually do anything, say anything against the Israeli massacre? No, they don't. You just see them push. They have some Israeli propaganda minister, you know, pushing lies about what's going on there, and pushing more propaganda. That's all I've ever seen. It's complete bullshit. And you know, and I don't even see how people what's even likable about Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu sounds like a demon from hell. I mean, have you heard his voice? It's creepy as shit. It's like, you know, I can't even do the Benjamin Netanyahu voice, but it's so, I guess maybe just really deep and emotionless is what, I don't know, I'm thinking at. But Benjamin Netanyahu, for all the Star Wars geeks out there, he's like, I would say Benjamin Netanyahu is probably like a Snoke, and Kylo Ren's probably, he's like Trump, I would say. But I don't think that he can be turned though. Unlike I think Kylo Ren, if you give me a prediction of what's going to happen by the end of the series, I'm thinking that Kylo Ren's probably going to turn to the good side. It's going to be revealed that he's personally close to Rey in one way or another. Probably, I don't know. It's hard for me to say. Are they going to reveal that they're brother and sister, or I think there might be the slight chance that they're going to be revealed that they were secretly boning or something. It's going to be revealed, because that's why I kind of got the feel in episode 8, like that there's like this. There's definitely an attachment of some kind between the two. I kind of thought that, I don't know, it's like maybe I don't see them being related for some reason. I see them more like, that there's some kind of like kind of tension between the two of because there was like the one scene also where like Kylo Ren's like hanging around with no shirt on. Like I just like for some reason I'm like picturing like Kylo Ren just hanging around like his little space chamber. And like, when's Rey's gonna show up? When is Snoke gonna do that thing where he bridges he didn't know Snoke was bridging the forces, but when is he gonna do that thing again? I wanna see Rey. Rey's gotta check out my gotta check out my 8-pack. By the way, that was I also think they might just throw that in there because they're like that Saturday Night Live skit where they did like about 2 years ago. Where it's like I saw Kylo Ren and there was like a stormtrooper. Or no, he was pretending to be like a normal stormtrooper. It was supposed to be like a parody of like the undercover boss, and he was like, he talked with other stormtroopers, and it's like a buddy of mine saw Kylo Ren take off his shirt in the shower. He told me he was shredded. I don't know if they just were like, hey, we'll just throw that in there just to be funny. I mean, it was a decent movie, to be honest. I don't know. There was a lot of hate on it for, somebody actually told me that it had like anti-capitalist messages in it, and that's why they didn't like it. I'm like, well, the people were arms dealers in the Canto Bright. It wasn't anti-capitalist to be, in a way, I think there was kind of a little bit of, truth was sprinkled in there about how the arms dealers were funding or not funding, but were giving arms to both the Republic and the First Order. That's kind of how it works in real life, But in real life, it's like, how it was for many years, the Soviet Union versus the United States government. Ultimately, the same bankers financed both sides of the Cold War. Rothschild, or how also in 1917, ultimately, it all started with the Bolshevik Revolution. Wall Street was over here. The American government was screaming about, well, not the American government, but a lot of American press was screaming about the danger of communism, while Wall Street was actually over there funding communism to come up in Russia. Which, by the way, had I could see people that defended the death of the Tsar, and, I could see people, how they justify it, but I don't see how people justify what they did when they say that the Tsar, the entire family deserved their fate. I mean, it wasn't like the kid like 9 years old or something like that. I mean, they say, oh, well, he would have been a Tsar in the future anyways. It's like, but that's not the way you do things. It's like, that some of the hardcore, Soviet defenders will go as far to say that about the Bolshevik, revolution. But I think that my opinion is that the people that I wonder what the alternate history would look like where the Tsar actually won the Civil War and or the White Russians won the Civil War and made the Tsar was brought back to power, or the Tsar defeats the Bolsheviks before they actually get the power. What that alternate Russia would look like. I wonder if we would have I wonder if there would be, some people I think have speculated that the Russians would have ultimately teamed up with the Nazis. Then again, I think Nazism wouldn't have existed, had it not been for the Bolsheviks. It was a necessary thing, and if you look at the, Albert Pike letter, that, he wrote in 1871, he mentioned that if the World War II had to be between the communists and the Nazis, and that's the thing is taking advantage of that. So in the Nazism was a reaction to the communist Russia. I wonder if Russia never went communist, if the Nazis would have even came to be about. Some people said that they would have teamed up with the Nazis, which I think would have never happened. I think that regardless, Russia and Germany would have fought in World War II against each other.
And I think potentially it would have happened quicker. I don't think that if the Tsar was still in power, he would have signed a peace treaty or he would have signed the non-aggression pact with Hitler. He would have never trusted, because of the nationalistic ways of the monarchy, he would have never trusted the new German government after what happened in World War I. And also ultimately I don't think they would trust the Germans after, what they did towards funding Bolshevikism. The monarchy didn't fund, but they assisted the Bolsheviks in World War I. I think they've been kind of weary of any German government afterwards. So, that's my personal view of it. I don't think the Tsar would have ever, even though that people said that Hitler took his inspiration from the Tsar partially, and that the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, one of the biggest propaganda literature pieces pushed about in Nazi Germany, was also was originally pushed by the Tsar, and actually was also pushed by Henry Ford in America, the English translation. I don't think that the Tsar and Hitler would have been like best buddies or anything like that. And also the pogroms were apparently, the idea of the pogroms was also apparently Hitler was inspired by the Tsar's pogrom. But, anyways, there's no real evidence that's actually kind of shady that the evidence that the Tsar was directly supportive of the pogroms in Russia. The pogroms definitely did happen in Russia where, anti-Jewish mobs in the country, but did the monarchy have anything to do with it? That's another story. If anybody wants to call in, it's going to be 718-717-8296, 717-8296 here, Voice of Gun Radio. Time running out, about 24 minutes left of the show. And, for the people that, watched I think I scared everyone off earlier with my, little rant that I went on. Gotta admit, it was probably entertaining radio. Sure. I haven't done one of those in a while, and it felt kind of good to actually do one. I think I might do another one before the end of the show, to be honest. Even though I had a lot of energy at the beginning of the show, and I wondered how long I could actually, go with it. And, by the way, I think, I might be in the next couple of weeks, maybe around the first week of February or something. And I'm sorry I haven't been on too many of these live, broadcasts. Things have happened. Schedule's a little bit different than it used to be. I don't have quite the free time I used to. But I'll trying to, even by live broadcast, I mean bringing new content. I said, I don't know, I just did that now because I knew, okay, I haven't done a show in a couple of weeks. I should at least make sure that if I'm making a show this week, I should do a live one here. Next week will probably not be a live show. Give you a little bit more details on that at the end of the show. And then I'm thinking about doing a Spanish show in a couple weeks, around the first week of February. Maybe, because I think this week's the 14th, next week's the 21st. So 28th, maybe. Or, I don't know, because that next week is Super Bowl Sunday. And, I don't know if it would be a live show on Super Bowl Sunday. I know it's I've done live shows the last a couple Super Bowl Sundays, but I also gotta work. Usually on Sunday. That's kind of been the hang up. This Sunday was different. But it's been the hang up for a couple months. Is that I work usually till about 8 o'clock Eastern time. And then, I get off, work. It's only got 20 minutes or so to prepare for the show. Actually get myself in radio mode. And after talking on the phones all day, because I mentioned what my job is that work at a call center. Now it's not as bad because the holidays I had to talk literally the entire time because call after call after call. If you work at a call center, the pain of that when you get done after a long ass conversation, that call ends, beep, you're in the next call. Or you're in a bad call, you have to really explain, the customer's yelling, beep, up, they call drops, next person's yelling again. It's like, it gets exhausting, but luckily the holidays are over. It's actually like a ghost town. I know it's like Sunday nights, it's great, actually, 'cause nobody shots Sunday nights. You just kind of just hang out, for me, I'll just do homework and stuff like that, but in the spare time. But, going back to, the main topic of, tonight, I went on different topics, but going back to, the political side of the show, going back to the main thing. When it comes to the hypocrisy of the media, another thing is that I've had people tell me, also it's weird how they're the same people that I would say are at the forefront of, are the forefront of this push towards, the Antifa, this whole, I guess you could say they're almost like the American Bolsheviks in some way. These people that are, that they're just, tearing up shit in different cities, and ultimately they have no real goal. Antifa, it's not, and they say that their goal is just simply to prevent, white nationalists and Nazis marching. I say they got a bigger, they're being used as tools in a bigger game to divide this country. But Antifa, a lot of these people will be the first to say that Russia is still communist. And this is complete bullshit to me. Is that it's really a bizarre reality that we're living in, where the Russians, where you have people it used to be right-wing conservatives didn't like Russia. Now it's like right-wing conservatives are, some of them are actually, at least I like the idea of having peace with Russia. One of those people saying on the left that we need to nuke Russia. And, it's absolutely insane. And they say that on the left, they say, oh yeah, Russia's an evil communist state. That they kill dissidents, and that that Putin is secretly the richest man in the world is what people say. They say that he has $200 billion, in assets. And they even go on, and then they'll go on to say that he's, that he's the reason why the elections were hacked. There's people that go, I've seen people say that Trump, because of his meddling with Russia, I've seen people say that he deserves to get executed for treason. This kind of anti-Russia hysteria, that's to the level of in the 1950s, after what was the Rosenbergs were the ones that were caught giving the atomic bomb secrets to the Soviet Union, they were executed. It's like the hysteria after that, the height of the second Red Scare in the mid-1950s. This is to the level of the hysteria against the Russians right now. And, instead of Joseph McCarthy, you could say probably it's now, I would say it's probably Al Franken was one of the top ones until he had the whole, scandal. Chuck Schumer and stuff like that. This is the new, push of the hysteria. This is like the center of the senators that are trying to make it seem like there's this massive, plot happened against them, it's out of a movie against the American, government, and then try to say that, here's how I almost see it, is that if you can't say that you're the world's top superpower, and at the same time say that the Russians hacked the election, and have the ability to alter your elections. If you're the world's top superpower, you don't get your elections medalist. And apparently we got our shit all fucked up, last November, is what they're trying to tell us. This is the living hypocrisy of the U.S. fake news media. And now they even go after people like, they say Jill Stein is now in this whole Russia scandal. I'm not a big fan of Jill Stein, but I know she's not working with the Russian government, and I actually would probably be a bigger fan of her if she was, but Jill Stein's this is getting ridiculous, is that the only big scandal I see there is that she got like a couple $1 million for a recount in the Trump election, that ultimately just money that she probably did nothing with. It feels like just a way of getting a couple $1 million for no real reason. Now that was the only thing I found. That's part of the reason why I didn't like Jill Stein. I realized that I don't think she was I feel like every candidate in that election practically had their role. Even Gary Johnson, Jill Stein, they had a role in serving, the ultimate end, which was that completely divided America. That's what they wanted. That was their end game, was a Trump victory, and then they could then they could have this completely divided America, this idea of a Russian meddling that they have pushed all the way. Now it's for 2018. Now we have impeachment videos being played on our TVs about Trump, saying that Trump should be impeached, that Trump, people on the internet saying they should be arrested, and so should all the top Russian meddlers. People making connections that don't exist. How many times did we hear about Sergei Kislyak or whatever, over and over again, and then the Trump Jr. meeting? All of stuff just keeps going on and on. And, if they really had connections that Trump meddled with Putin, they would have been brought out months ago. I mean, they would have been brought out probably in April of last year. But look at this. We're now in what? This is January of 2018. I mean, we're still talking about the same stuff we were talking about. I mean, they've been talking about this Russian meddling thing since what? Ever since I remember like a year ago, one of the first things was that Trump dossier. Yeah, the Russian Trump dossier, saying that he invited the prostitutes to pee on him or whatever. Yeah, that was the and apparently at the room that Obama stayed in, that was turned out to be completely fake. I mean, there's been so many debunked, that were immediately debunked stories that came about. That's this hysteria that we're living in. I'm not gonna say it's unprecedented, but this is the highest it's been, this tension between the United States and Russia since the middle of the Cold War, since the 1980s. It was the last time that they talked about Russia in the same light. And I remember just a few years ago when it wasn't that way, when Russia was kind of seen like a frenemy, I guess you could say, of the United States. At one point, I remember back in the Bush years and such, when I think Putin was kind of at that point. I mean, he didn't actually kick out the Rothschilds in 2006, so I think he was kind of playing a game, was kind of feeling out the West, and kind of he knew he had to be smooth, because if he came in immediately and did some of the stuff that he would do later, they would have overthrown him. There's nothing you can tell to people that like legitimately believe all the stuff the media has to say about Russia to change their minds. If you say there's elections, all they say that's a rigged elections, and and they say, oh well, the elections that Putin wins every time. I'm like, have you ever seen Putin's opponents? They suck. I mean, I know the guy that's running against the guy that ran against Putin like multiple times, Zyuganov, is a member of the Communist Party. Many of these Russians don't want communism they don't want that again. And also another thing is that Zyuganov just wasn't really a likable character. And it's like going to pick Vladimir Zhirinovsky, which is just like a just Russian bore, when people think like a bad stereotype of Russians, Vladimir Zhirinovsky is that guy. And also his party kisses up to Israel, even though it's supposed to be supposedly a nationalist party. It's like, let's say, the faux nationalists that exist in Europe. He's one of them. But now this time Zyuganov has been replaced, of the Communist Party, been replaced by a different guy who's not even from the party, but he's running under the party tickets, Pavel Grudinin. It's not Pavel Grudin. It almost looks like Grudin. Yeah, it's, by the way, let's talk about, crazy. That guy actually got hired for his job. He's not going to get hired. Pavel Grudin's not going to get hired by the Russian people. It's not a Grudin like coaching the NFL that just got that fucking $120 million contract or whatever for the Raiders. Holy shit. 10 years too. I think by that time I don't even know if the NFL will exist anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that it's because of the whole Kaepernick protest and everything. That's the reason why the NFL is gonna no longer exist. But I just think by the fact that the NFL is not really the NFL is not I think that it's just losing its popularity for different reasons. I don't think it's because of the protest, but I think some people are just also, just many people are just waking up. That's the big distraction it is, that they want to do something a little bit more than just the same routine, going to work, watching football, and staying in the slumber. It's kind of a sad existence that a lot of Americans are in, struggling to pay bills, and and we don't have any real safety net. Well, they talk all the time about the problem of a lot of people being over encumbered by by their student debt. Well, in Russia they have free university, they have free healthcare in Russia. But there's people that talk about how they talk about how bad it is in Russia and how we should be glad to live in America. They won't mention that, and they talk about how they want free healthcare for this country and they want free university, but they knack on they would knack on Russia for doing just the same thing, calling it concessions to keep them satisfied from the lack of democracy or whatever. Which I think they got a pretty varied democracy actually. They got pretty much they got many different parties from all across the spectrum. If you look at it, that is represented in Russia, like literally anything. You got Nazis, you got communists, you got sensible people like Putin. They're kind of like more in the middle. You got regular socialists. You got Nazbol. I mean, I think that I don't even know if they're still a party technically. They're like they're like really a contradiction. Nationalist Bolsheviks. That's really a interesting combination. But yeah, they exist. You have a little bit of everything there. And you even got parties like Kinnan, it's like the owner of the Brooklyn Nets. It's Russian. He ran for president last time, Mikhail Prokhorov. Well, he was still leader of the Brooklyn Nets. I know, it's kind of weird thinking that, somebody that's, an owner of an American basketball team is running for a foreign, title for presidency. I say, what if he actually won? That'd be weird. It's like, oh yeah, and now introducing the president of Russia out to the Barclays Arena. It's like, he's out there walking with Jay-Z or whatever. That'd be pretty weird. Anyway, we're down to the last 8 minutes of the show. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Voice of Gun Radio today. And if you caught this show, if you tuned in a little bit late, you missed all the rant and everything earlier, you can tune in via YouTube later, or go to ucy.tv, check out the archives. By the way, if you are listening to UCY TV, the mic doesn't end here. There's live radio till 1 o'clock in the morning, and then there's the recordings overnight, but the live radio continues. The next show that's coming up will be livefree.fm with Nathan Frazier. So if you're tune in to ucy.tv, definitely check him out. To the people that are new to new to ucy.tv. There's a lot of great shows on this network, a lot of great people on this network, and you have to just search. I mean, I actually haven't discovered the majority of the shows on the ucy.tv. I do feel a little bit guilty that I have not listened to some of these people's shows. They definitely look like there are very interesting shows indeed. Even on this day, I know a couple of the guys, I've seen them online on Facebook, but I've actually not taken the time to watch their shows or listen to their shows. I definitely have to make that a goal to listen to some of these other shows that are on the network. But from the ones I have listened to, this is a very varied and different, many opinions, but also it is a great network. And, as always, St. Jules, who ultimately puts this entire thing together. You do a great job, Jules, and she really, with all the hosts that are on this network, she actually does have a pretty big task of keeping this all together. She's the glue of UCY.TV, and she really puts a lot of her personal time into making UCY.TV possible. So I will give another thanks to that. Another thanks to her, and just got a couple minutes left. So, here's the big announcement that I wanted to make. I said there would be more details in the show. is that Thursday I'm going to do a late night show at 10:30 Eastern time. It's going to be on, and then I'm going to have the recording played on Sunday. But Thursday at 10:30 Eastern time, plan on going live on, my, Blog Talk Radio. Stabled Radio is the network that I use there to do the recordings that later are put onto UCY.TV. I'm going to do it's going to be 1 hour interview, and then I'll probably stay on the air for the other hour just to round it out, make a 2-hour show out of it. But it's going to be, I might actually go live at 10. I'm thinking I might go live at 10, have her come on at 10:30, or I might even have the first hour as just me, and then second hour my guest will come on. My guest on Thursday night is going to be Cynthia McKinney, who ran in 2008 for the Green Party, former Congresswoman. If you check her out on Google, very interesting lady indeed. She has been one of the few people that have ever been in Congress that have ever exposed the realities of what's really going on and at the higher levels of our government. And I'm very honored to have the to have the ability to interview her, and it's going to be an awesome show. So yes, I'm going to determine actually it's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern time. That's when I'll start the show. It's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern. She'll be arriving around 10:30 to Voice Rebellion Radio, and she said she would stick around for about an hour. That's kind of tentative at this point, but I know that I will be having her as a guest on Thursday night. Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman from Georgia. I think she was in Congress for about 12 or 13 years in the United States Congress, not just state Congress, but was a United States Congresswoman that I'll be getting to interview on Voice Rebellion Radio. Catch that live on Thursday night, or the recording will be played on Sunday at 9 o'clock here at UCY.TV. But I had to accommodate her schedule and also really accommodate my schedule as well. We're doing it Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern time. That could change. It will be the same night, but that could change by a little bit later if necessary. Like I said, it could be 10:30 potentially. I'll put more news about that on my Facebook page, about the actual set time, but it'll definitely the latest they'll start. She'll be arriving regardless, 10:30. I might start at 10, or I might start the show at 10:30 and just start with her on the broadcast, and then stay and then end the program at 12:30 after the 2 hours, or it actually might go later, depending, if anybody else calls in or something like that. The show might go on till, because it's a Blog Talk Radio show, it could go 3 hours, could go to 1:30 potentially, depending on just how everything goes. But what I plan on ending the show at is at 12:30. So this show's coming to an end. So everybody that now has heard about the interview with Cynthia McKinney on Thursday, get the word out about that. It's going to be at Stable Radio on Blog Talk Radio, and it'll be later played here at UCY.TV next Sunday night. Thanks everyone for tuning in to Blog Talk. Thanks everyone for tuning in to UCY.TV on. And this is Voice of Rebellion Radio, Chris Shea on this Sunday night. Like I said, if you haven't caught, if you missed part of the show earlier, you can always go to the archives on UCY.TV or go to YouTube. And, also to the people that haven't done it yet, send me just press the subscribe button on my Facebook page of Chris Jackson Rojas. I do podcasts and post other news throughout the weekend, especially this week. You can keep up about set time that will be starting on Thursday, and other news about the show they'll be doing on Thursday. And also, like I said, the shows down the road. I'll put info about when I'm airing on there. So everyone, thank you, Andy. Have a great night.
They always say I changed for the worse, like prescription pills when you misusing them, nigga. The Templar Knights when they took Jerusalem, nigga, and figured out what was buried under Solomon's temple, Al-Aqsa. The name is not coincidental. I know too much. The government is trying to murder me. No coming back like cutting your wrists open vertically. How could the serpent be purposely put in charge of the country. Genetic engineered sickness spread amongst me. My people are so hungry that they attack without reason, like a fucking dog ripping off the hand that feeds them. Immortal technique is treason to the Patriot Act. So come and get me, motherfucker, cause I'm not coming back. This is the point from which I can never return, and if I back down now